So today I'm going to talk to you about Atmosphere by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid is one of my long-time authors. I used to get all of her books on Kindle, and then when she got really big a couple of years ago, I of course read all of those too. And I just love her writing. This is Theo, by the way. He has few opinions on books, but he's always there for me when I'm reading. So yeah, long time Taylor Jenkins Reid fan, on different levels. Some of her books I'm like brilliant, amazing, thought-provoking, and others I'm like brilliant sun lounger read, if you kind of get my vibe there. So today we're going to chat about Atmosphere, and I'm going to share some thoughts with you. I have seen pretty conflicting thoughts about this book online. I would say that people skew heavily in one direction or the other. So when I kind of explain the premise of the book to you, Theo's like desperate because he likes to sit on this windowsill and bark at the people who walk by. But I'm not gonna let him do that. So the premise of the book, it's 1984, and there's an astronaut disaster in space. Vanessa and Griff are on a spacewalk, and then this astrophysicist called Joan has to guide Vanessa, who's the only conscious person left on the spacecraft, to fix the shuttle and then hopefully return home. So like many of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, it's a flashback narrative. And so we kind of see how this situation came to be, and we are taken on the journey of Joan and Vanessa. So most of her books are romances, so that kind of aspect of it I was expecting, I enjoyed, I loved, but I am just going to go straight out there and say it. I don't think this was her best book, and I think that's totally fine. When you look back through Taylor Jenkins Reid's kind of authorship arc, she had a start where she was kind of writing more of those fluffy filler books, which had some important, poignant, heartfelt moments in, for sure, as does Atmosphere. And then there were a few books in the middle there where she was kind of nailing those characters, and it was all kind of coming together and being totally exciting and just captivating writing, captivating characters, captivating stories. And I think that Atmosphere is a little bit of a step back to what I would say how she used to write before some of those bigger books. And I think that much of that has to do with the pace of the story and the characters being slightly underdeveloped. In general, the book to me felt almost under-edited, which I don't say that to be mean at all, and I loved it, and it was I would kind of put it in the category of sun lounger reads. It was a great sun lounger read, but it just didn't feel as tight as some of her other writing. And I imagine as well there's probably a lot of pressure on her to produce, and maybe that kind of feeling is a consequence of that pressure. I don't know. But yeah, there was no hook, there was no exciting drive kind of pushing me through the story, and I didn't feel like the main characters themselves were well-rounded individuals. So for example, Joan was just kind of nice and good at everything, and I didn't really root for her particularly. And then Vanessa was like the antithesis of Joan, so she was exciting and fiery and all of these other things, but again there was no rounded development of either of those characters. It was just a love story, and you didn't really feel like they were nuanced full people. Neither of them had major flaws. Their tragic backstories, as far as that can be suggested, weren't really outlined. They didn't have particularly interesting personal lives. So yeah, that's kind of how I felt about the book. I have a few notes here, so I'm just gonna check if I've forgotten anything. yeah, so those things are kind of raised, but they're never kind of, there are so yeah, there are things that are kind of developed, but these are never these are never dealt with in a satisfactory way. They kind of leave as they go into the story. By that I mean that they don't change over the course of the book. They're completely flat, at least in my opinion, they're completely flat. And yeah, they say that they change, but I feel like if you've read the book, like, they don't show that they've changed in any particular way. And I'm going to talk more about the ending and how I feel like that could be a little bit better later on in this video. But yeah, just in general as well, there was a lack of drive and a lack of kind of conflict throughout the story. And often Taylor Jenkins Reid's books have that kind of thing that makes you like just not want to put it down. And she's usually so good at that. So it was a little bit disappointing to kind of just be taken on this meandering, like, scenic route of a story without having that like passion for Joan and Vanessa. And I don't know if that's kind of structural, like you're introduced to the crisis before you even really care about any of the characters. I just don't think that was done well enough to kind of get you hooked and panicked. But yeah, that's how I kind of felt about it. And a lot of my feelings about it as well was that it felt kind of, one second.